This is an Irish independent podcast.
Hello everybody, Football Show is coming at you. We have a rugby podcast as well today, but football for the foreseeable. We will be talking Premier League with Damien Delaney. Sean O'Connor was at the Aviva Stadium yesterday as Drogheda. I mean, it would be quite something to win the Cup and get relegated in the same week, but they do face that prospect after beating Derry 2-0 in front of 38,723 fans, which, by the way, is 1,000 fans more than turned up for Ireland-Greece just in September. So the attendance record at this final of late is just really, really strong. This was not the most appetising game for the neutral, but still, brilliant attendance. And Drogheda very, very happy. We have Derry man, Colin Doherty here now.
Hello, Joe.
Oof. Drogheda showed your boys.
Yeah. And that attendance as well. Are Drogheda the Liverpool of Ireland? Drogheda, not Irish. They will travel for this game, but they might not fully get behind the country.
Oh, sorry. What was that? It's an early leap.
Well, I want a sting of Drogheda for no reason.
All right, we get your sore. You lost. Ronan Mullen, hello.
Hi, Joe. You couldn't have got a more biased panel in here. Someone from Dundalk, someone from Derry.
Did they really deserve it, though? Yes, they did.
Thank God Sean's here later to actually.
Sean O'Connor was there, will be here. They will play at Tallaght Stadium next Saturday against Bray to just avoid relegation, and then it's a perfectly good season. But a really good performance yesterday seems to be the consensus. They're very, very good. They are still the last in the league, trying to walk that fine line of amateur, part-time, professional. Some great pieces in the build-up to the week along those themes. They will, though, play European football next year, and that will account for well over 500,000 guaranteed into their coffers next year. So, I mean, amazing for them. Derry not happy. I mean, we're going to talk more about Drogheda with Sean later on, but here, for instance, is Gareth McGlynn on the performance of his former side Derry. He was speaking as part of RT's post-match coverage.
The Derry City players have let the city down tonight. They've let the manager down and they've let the chairman down, and it's not good enough. You can have all the technical ability in the world if you want, but if you haven't got the heart to go and do something and the need to go and do something, then you're not going to achieve it, and they need to be damn ashamed of themselves.
Let the city down.
I mean, this is a rare year in that it just felt like the whole city was just rolling in behind Derry. Obviously, the Philip O'Doherty stuff has gained a lot of traction. It's gotten a lot of buzz around the place. I think League of Ireland football in general has just gotten sexier, and it has in Derry as well. And there was a real sense that this team could do something. And obviously, the way it's just petered out is too kind. I mean, the last 12 league games, they won 3, they lost 5, they drew 4, or it might have been the other way around, drew 5, lost 4, and it just sort of petered to a halt, not even coming third in the European places. So they were going to this game having to win this to qualify for Europe, and then they've come away with nothing. And I think the disappointing thing for me, and it's probably what McGlynn's touching on a little bit, but Rory Higgins said after this past loss in the league that, you know, to be honest, we lost the league a while back. And it was like, hang on, the last 4 games, you had 2 home matches against Bows and Sligo to go on top of the league. Like, it was in Derry's hands, and so was this, and it just didn't deserve it. Drogheda full value for it.
Well, Sean O'Connor is going to join us later on. He was at the game, been reporting on the game. Speaking of Derry, it is once again the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. And so, James McLean, year number 12 of this situation. We're not going to dwell on this, by the way. I think Erin McLean summed it up reasonably well when she posted, I don't know about the rest of you. This is just boring now. 12 years on, you would think it would be old news. But it wasn't. I saw the Daily Mail had it as their maybe 3rd or 4th biggest story on Saturday when McLean stood a distance from his Wrexham teammates as they observed a minute's silence before their match against Mansfield. He has refused to take part in the remembrance commemorations now since he moved to play for Sunderland in 2011. As people know, he grew up in Derry's Creggan Estate, home place of many of the 14 people killed in the 72 Bloody Sunday massacre. Pointlessly, he was talking about the situation again. I mean, it's like you just can't make it any clearer to everybody. So, I mean, again, he just made such valid points when he said the poppy originally stood for World War I and II, but it's now been adopted into honouring and remembering British soldiers that have served in all conflicts, including those who opened fire and murdered 14 innocent civilians on Bloody Sunday in January 72 in my home city, as well as many other brutal crimes throughout Ireland. That is why I have never and will never wear a poppy. If the poppy's sole purpose was to honour World War I and II, then I'd have no issue wearing it. But that's not the case. So I think a lot of the venom and the heat has gone out of this because it's year 12, and to quote Aaron, everyone's a bit bored by everyone is like, oh my God, we can't talk about this anymore. But I also noted in the Daily Mail comments section an interesting new kind of a tone. So generally you would go on there over the last couple of years, like right when this was kind of at its height over the 5, 6, 7 years ago, it's just like nationalism bubbling away, Brexit, he was just being destroyed. Well, why is he taking our money, and earning a living over here when you just go home, that kind of a sentiment. But I think something interesting has happened to that kind of quotient of the internet, whereby now, like, say, the anti-vax movement or a support for Trump in this part of the world in particular, it's sort of seen as like anti-establishment, like the woke establishment. Like you can't even crack a joke anymore. You can't say anything. You can't be an individual. That's like the real burning, overarching, I think, thread of the Daily Mail commentators. And so I sort of think what's happened now is a lot of the comments were like, well, look, obviously he should. But then they realised, crap, we've spent the last 364 days defending the right of the individual. So now a lot of them were softened with, but look, okay, I mean, the guy has to be entitled to an opinion as well, I suppose. Wow. So there was that kind of softening. There was one person who said that he was in the British Army and had served in the Middle East and said, but I fought for people to be able to disagree. And again, there was reluctant,
it's an amazing line, isn't it?
400 likes. Okay, fine. If you're going to play that one, we can't disagree. So there was this kind of a softening. It went from uniformity of disdain for McLean and get the hell out of our country to, I suppose, maybe not everybody should be told what to do in every instance. Yeah. Obviously, we've some experience of that in the last while. Yeah. So it was really like McLean sort of, damn. He's the exception that proves the rule. We have to kind of soften our stance towards him a touch, which was interesting. It's the first time I'd seen that. The first time I'd seen a big quotient of he should be allowed be the person he wants to be.
No, I thought, to be fair, Erin actually hit the nail on the head, didn't she? Like, she captured the fatigue that we're all feeling, but I appreciate that for James McLean and family, the vitriol is no less intense, I'm sure, that what they're getting from those who still harbour misgivings about the way he approaches this. Like, as you said, none of us are coming to this fresh, with the exception of, like, Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds, who in the last couple of years increasingly are getting an insight into, why is Wrexham trending number one in the UK on news websites? And like, you see how Sky News, and other, quote unquote venerable establishments used, they know by putting this in the headline, in what other context is James McLean on the Sky News page? You know what I mean? They're playing the game a little bit there. And I just think there's an element of, you kind of know what's going to come in the comment section and the talking heads who are going to bite on this. And like, Wrexham, much like Wigan, the fans have really rallied behind James McLean. That hasn't always been the case. Other clubs' fans that he's been at have kind of railed against him a little bit. But like, Wrexham sings songs about, for example, James McLean's proclivity or otherwise to the king. Routinely, he's captained them. Is he the club captain? He's certainly captained them regularly. So, he's a real focal point of their movement. And, he's going to get a huge backing there at least.
Well, look, we'll do it all again next year, I suppose is where we are on that one. So Sean O'Connor is going to join us to talk about the Aviva on Sunday yesterday. Before that, we'll get into some Premier League with Damien Delaney. So Damien Delaney is standing by. Let me round up the Premier League weekend that was yesterday. Arsenal and Chelsea drew 1-1 at Stamford Bridge. It was not a bad game. Very good point for Chelsea, possibly less so for Arsenal given their ambitions. At Old Trafford, Ruud van Nistelrooy signed off in style, 3-0 win against Leicester. It is still unclear if he's going to be part of Ruben Amorim's staff. His first game in charge will be after the international window. Also yesterday, Spurs every time you think they're going to do something, they go and lose at home to Ipswich. Sammy Smodix, we should mention, with a very clever overhead finish as he heads to Dublin now for International Week, which is very much upon us. Newcastle starting to look good as well yesterday. Little run of form now. They beat Nottingham Forest 3-1. And then on Saturday, Liverpool, the 8 o'clock kickoff, 2-0 winners against Aston Villa at Anfield. And before that, Manchester City, they are Rodri-less and rudderless. Man City have lost 4 games in a row now, beaten away to Brighton on Saturday. It must be said, first 30 minutes was an absolute clinic. They were 1-0 up, and it looked like a kind of perfect steadying of the ship type performance. Second half, though, not so good. So the table as stands, Liverpool 28 points after 11 matches, 9 wins from 11, 28 points. They are 5 clear of Manchester City, and then you have 4 teams who are 9 points off the top. Chelsea 9 points off the top, Arsenal 9 points off, as are Forest and Brighton. So as we head into the international break in November, Liverpool nicely in control of the Premier League.
It's going to come towards Virgil van Dijk, who helps it on for Salah, and Liverpool all of a sudden have players up in support. There is a challenge on Salah, but it should be a chance for Darwin Núñez. It's a goal for Darwin Núñez, and Liverpool go from one end of the field to the other. Salah was taken out. Darwin Núñez wasn't waiting for the referee. He scores, and Salah gets the break, and Salah has the run towards goal. Can Liverpool make this count and put it to bed? Salah all the way and slams the ball home. Martinez never came, and Salah makes him pay the price. And this incredible start to the season continues, not just for Mohamed Salah, it's for Liverpool.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey Joe, how are you?
We were just chatting rugby there before we started. Some interesting insights from you.
It's nothing that you wouldn't hear down the pub, honestly. Just musings, because I'm getting into my rugby. I'm starting to watch it now. I didn't grow up at rugby, so I don't really know what's going on with it, but I'm getting into it. I feel like the nation's behind it, so my patriotic side is coming out, and I'm making time to watch the game.
Well, that's good.
And of course, you guys on a Friday night as well, Joe. You know.
Wow, it's unmissable stuff. So, I think if City were 5 points clear, we would be declaring the league over. Liverpool, obviously, less of a sure thing. Even on Saturday, Alexis McAllister was saying, start of the season, I did not think that we'd be challengers. Have they nudged themselves now into favourites category?
Oh, absolutely, without doubt. Arnie Slought's come in and not missed a beat. You know, all the eyes of the world, the Premier League were on him to see taking over after the great Jurgen Klopp. There was a lot of pressure on him. You have to admit that he was left an incredibly good squad in a really good place. Jurgen had obviously perhaps felt that he'd come to the end of the road with the team, and maybe his energy levels wasn't quite getting the team to where it wanted to be, so he stepped aside. We mused at the start of the season about the lack of a number 6, a recognised number 6. Gravenberch has come in and give them a relative kind of safety in that position. I'm still not 100% certain on it. I'm not sure you can go the whole season with him as the defensive midfield player. But they've been brilliant, and that's credit to Arnie Slot. Me saying that he was left a good squad is in no way taking away from what he's done with Liverpool. He came in the building, and the first thing you have to do is get the players' attention. Get their gaze on him, and they have to believe in him pretty much straight away. If there's any flaw, any moment where the players are going, I'm not sure about this guy, you could lose a dressing room relatively quickly, or the players might not buy into it. But they have with him, and he's got him fully on side. And he picked a side that was, remember what I just said there with Jurgen, the energy levels were down, maybe the side's energy levels were down, but he's come in and picked up straight away, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. And
energy levels aside, so I know you watched the game obviously against Villa on Saturday evening. In what ways are they different to a Klopp team?
They're more patient. I think they keep the ball better. They look more defensively solid. That's why my biggest fear was, not having a Fabinho type. We get to Man City and their issues with losing that. That's such an important position. But I think they retain the ball an awful lot better. They're an awful lot more patient. Jurgen Klopp perhaps I don't want to do a disservice, was a little bit more off the cuff, a little bit more, high energy, trying to batter initially tried to batter the opposition to submission. Then he tried to go to this patient build-up, and I don't think that was quite his bag, to be honest with you. Jurgen tried to change styles a couple of times and was pretty successful. But this guy, it is his style, and the players have just bought into it straight away. And they look good, and you can't say they're not favourites for the league this year. They absolutely are.
There was an odd dynamic at 1-0 up. So Darwin Núñez scored a very good goal, in fairness to him. It was a great break from a Villa corner. Van Dijk, kind of a real burst of energy from him, and a ball forward for Salah. He was maybe pushed over, maybe not, but in fairness to Núñez, he got on it and finished well. But then there was it was a kind of open-ish first half, and then start of the second half, there was a weird dynamic in the game, which kind of continued for a fair chunk of it, whereby Aston Villa were sitting in their 4-4-2 shape, Liverpool in possession, centre-backs with the ball. And there was, it's like, well, we're not pressing. I mean, this is where we're sitting. And then Van Dijk quite often in possession was like, okay, well, I'm not doing anything either. And so there was like a stalemate.
And that's, I think that's sums up what I'm saying, the difference in style. I think Jurgen Klopp might have been pushing forward looking for the second third, but the Dutch style is much more, we're winning 1-0. It's up to you to come and have a go at us. Now, I suppose previously you might think 1-0 is a dangerous scoreline. You don't want to take your foot off the gas. And that's what I'm saying this Liverpool team are good at. Their ball retention and in-game management. A lot of the games this year have been like that. I mean, I did a number of games this year for the TV, and first half, kind of shrugging your shoulders, not a lot going on. And you're kind of hoping for a bit more, and then they come out the second half, and they have players at the top end of the pitch that can turn it on. And he's just got a real good balance to the team at the moment. The patience, what you referenced there, is what I admire most, that I think he's brought to this Liverpool team, that they don't panic and go looking for the second and third and then end up throwing a game away or losing a game. I actually remarked a few weeks ago that they don't start games particularly well, very slow, methodical. And I'm like, oh, come on, man, give us a bit of energy. But perhaps that's to their credit, that they don't. They want to control the game, control the tempo, and they have belief in what the manager is telling them in terms of that they will create chances further up the road or later on in the game. And invariably they do. And when you have the players at the top end of the pitch, why would you feel the need to go looking for it? Because they'll go and get it eventually.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because I think we've all noticed those kind of third gear first halves and then much better seconds. So who knows, if that pattern continues, maybe there is an element of, all right, everybody, let's feel our way in, nothing silly. Whereas under Klopp, I guarantee the message was, first 10 minutes, we start like a freight train.
Yeah, and I think that's why they haven't missed, the opposite of that is why they haven't missed the defensive number 6, because they've never been stretched, they've never just gone gung-ho and threw a lot of bodies forward and all of a sudden they get counter-attacked and it's like, oh my God. So that's why Gravenberch, I would imagine, is fitting in there and looks in place, doesn't look out of place, because he's just nice and settled in the middle of the park. The centre-backs aren't forcing balls in, they're not forcing the issue with players making runs, and they're just in control. So that's why he deserves credit. He deserves an awful lot of credit, that manager. His record has been superb. But now as we go on in the season, the pressure of winning the league will start cranking up, especially if they open up a relatively nice cushion, which I think they will. So yeah, life is good if you're Liverpool at the minute.
Yeah, well, on the pressure on them, I mean, not that this alone will amp it up, but history is on their side. Only 6 teams, including Liverpool now, have had a 5-point lead 11 games in. So the other 5 all went on to win the league. So it's not a nothing lead 11 games in. By the way, Gravenberch not looking out of place. Queven Kelleher looking very at home as well. Jeez,
absolutely.
He is of this level, isn't he?
He is making the case. I think that he could be Liverpool number 1 next year. I think with Alisson pushing on in age, injuries are creeping up. So they'll start looking at this now from the business point of view. Do we sell Alisson in the summer and just go with Kelleher, which I think would be a smart decision? Because if they don't and they go with Alisson, they might sell Queven for, say, 40 as a figure. But to replace Alisson in 18 months' time from now will cost you 100, 120. So Liverpool will start looking at it that way. I know they signed that Georgian boy, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce his name, and put him out on loan. So I think they might have those 2 keepers next year with Queven as number 1. I think it will be the smart decision. I think they've gotten everything they can get out of Alisson. They might recoup some money for him in the summer. If they, even if you got into, say, Saudi or back to Brazil, you get some money in the door for him. But the guy, in fairness, Queven, and I'm not just saying this because he's from Cork, because I know that's what you're going to say next, Joe. I think he genuinely is every inch of Liverpool number 1, and he has not looked out of place. He's made every save he has to make. The players trust him. In possession, the centre-backs are quite happy to go back to him. They're quite happy to make angles. His distribution is as good as you're going to get in the Premier League. And why not? I just don't see any reason why not. From a business point of view, it makes sense.
You need luck in life, don't you? Because these two Alisson injury spells, the last season and this season, have transformed his standing. Even the Irish jersey, I mean, it's really worked out for him. Just one last one on Liverpool. I heard you speaking on Virgin a couple of weeks ago about Salah, and just 32. He wants a 3-year deal.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I don't know. It's when the legs go, they really go, and with him, it'll be a huge, a huge extent of what he has to offer if that physicality goes. He's set to become the first player across the 5 European big leagues this season to have 10 goals and 10 assists. Took the chance so well. Like, that should have been a really rushed, frantic chance, running from halfway at an angle. He just waits and waits and waits and waits and waits and makes the finish look so easy. I don't know. I'd say they're thinking about, you know what? Okay, if he's a dud for the last year, fine. Give us the next 2.
Looking that way, Joe, it's hard to put up an argument against that. I still don't. I'd still be leaning towards he has to make a concession as well. That if you want 3 years, we can't give you that, and the club have to stand firm with that, because they have to draw a line and say with players past a certain age, we might get another 18 months out of him. And I will listen. I love Salah, and I think he's doing brilliant. And this is a tough argument to make. And I understand Liverpool fans will be screaming, going, "No, you give him what he wants." But the type of money he wants for the length of time that he wants, you might have to suck it up for the last year. I just think the club need to stand firm and say to him, "Look, we'll give you 2 years." And I think that's a fair compromise.
Is there ever a thing in negotiations whereby Mo will give you the money you want for 2 years, but then your money goes down year 3 and we have a series of bonuses or inducements? Are those kind of things?
But the player will never admit. Yeah, they'll try it, but the player will never admit that. But why would you? Your value says I should get 3 years.
Okay.
But I think if he loves it, maybe there is a deal to be done there. But I think the club have to have a policy, and you might consider breaking it for him. But then if you break it for him, you'll have every player knocking on your door. And that is the problem with contracts in football, is once you break, the red line, then everyone comes knocking. Once you say, oh, by the way, we're only paying X amount of money, and then someone gets paid more than that, the pay structure moves. So I think they'll stand firm. I think there will be a deal done, though. But I still think the club need to stand firm with what they're doing.
So Man City, first time in Pep Guardiola's career, he has lost 4 in a row. Bournemouth, again, I mean, Bournemouth are good, away from home, tricky, and City had their chances laid on in that game. The second one is Spurs in the Carabao Cup. For me, ignore that. And then against with Sporting and Brighton at the weekend, in both first halves, City had more than enough chances to kill both games off. Now, they haven't, obviously. They're without Ruben Diaz, allied to Rodri. That gets a bit messy. So at the weekend, they had 19-year-old central defender making his debut, Hamai Simpson-Pusi, with Gore Vidal moved into centre-half with him. Rico Lewis was at left-back. No great worries about City. It's just a disjointed phase. Do you agree with that, or are you seeing something a little bit more pernicious worrying in the medium term?
I'll tell you what worried me most was Pep after the game, his comments, where he said something along the lines, paraphrasing here, but it was like, maybe it's time for someone else to win it, winning it 5 out of 6, maybe it's time for someone else. And I'm like going, Jesus almighty, he's starting to feel, that's a man that's just a little bit dejected. But look, every club, every manager has to deal with injuries. Arsenal had to deal with Odegaard missing, Rodri missing. He needs to find a solution to that. It's bloody huge. Because it's games like the last 4 that Rodri will get you 2 wins and 2 draws, just because you're not firing on all cylinders. You've got a young centre-back, and all of a sudden you get over the line against Lisbon, after going 1-0 up. And then, obviously the Bournemouth game gets you over the line as well. But those 2 players, Ruben Diaz and Rodri, are really, really putting pressure on Manchester City. It's tough to cope without it. But I think this is where Pep needs to earn his corner, really does. Life isn't always perfect. He's had a difficult time. He's still got Erling Haaland at the top end of the pitch scoring goals. So, young centre-back coming in, I think he looks a prospect. I think Vidal is going to end up as a centre-back, and I think over the next 5 years he's going to be probably the world's premier centre-back. I think he has just got everything. Mobility, pace, good on the ball. If he develops, and I think long-term he will be like the standout defender at world level, to be honest with you. So
going to miss him scoring 10 goals a season from left back, but
that's true as well. Yeah, that's true.
And by the way, just did you see Pep afterwards with Jan-Paul van Heck?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so here, Van Heck and Haaland had been having, a bit of a tussle all game, and that was all, all is fair in love and war. But then maybe 5 minutes from the end, they sort of squared up to each other, and Van Heck sort of hit the ground holding his face kind of thing, and nothing came of it. But Pep is on the pitch afterwards, and it's like, again, it's a long Pep Guardiola lecture to Van Heck, who I think because of Guardiola's status in the game is sort of like nodding and listening and like taking it all on board. And like, I don't know.
It's unnecessary.
Just get out of my face. Like, who do you think you are?
Yeah, and listen, all those Man City players have done that in the past as well, gone down. That's just a sign of pressure showing on Pep. He's losing games now, and he's not thinking clearly, and pressure will do that to you.
You watched the game at Stamford Bridge. Arsenal got a draw. Oh yeah, okay. So what does that mean?
Oh yeah. Oh, Chelsea. Oh, really hot on Chelsea.
Yeah, okay, good. I'm with you. There's
really good.
Yeah, go on. So tell us why.
Oh, just like, first of all, expectations were low for them this year. I don't think anybody had. But my God, Maresca has got that team playing a brand of football, a style of football, and energy and intensity that is admirable. Chelsea seem to be involved in nearly every big game for the last 3 or 4 weekends. They're on the Super Sunday. Yeah. And I found myself watching them and really enjoying watching them. I mean, you got Madueke and Neto on the wings. Listen, Jackson is probably the only, I won't say negative, but the only weak point, I think. Cole Palmer is just a joy. I would pay money to watch him play football. His languid style, but his incredible genius is brilliant. They got young English centre-back in Colwell. They got Fofana. They have, the midfield, you wouldn't want to go up against them two, no. Lavia and Caicedo. I mean, they are two brutes. They can shift over the ground. They're quick, they're pacey, they're aggressive. There is a lot to like about this Chelsea team. We were talking earlier about challengers for Liverpool. I think, I'm not prepared to go to the limb just yet, but I think that they're going to be thereabouts. They're probably a centre-forward short. But if Jackson gets hot, which he can do, he can score goals, I think they'll be thereabouts. I really like what they're doing. Everything about them is brilliant. He's
very impressive, Maresca. Even pre-game, he was asked, you've left your captain out, Reece James. Is that because he's just back from injury, you're resting him? And he could have gone for that. He said, no, tactical. No, it's tactical. Yeah. And even... Enzo Fernandez, listen, we all like what you're about and everything, but you don't quite fit, and the two boys are good, and Cole Palmer's Cole Palmer, so you're just not starting 11 anymore. All these decisions really kind of, brave is too strong a word, but he's got an authority about the place very, very quickly, and that's hard to do at Chelsea.
And results are good, and that helps a manager, obviously, when you can, because you can say that to Enzo, and what he said to Reece James is pretty much unheard of for the last 4 or 5 years with Reece James. He's been first name on the team sheet, and rightly so. But results are determining that the team stays as it is. And I think that's huge for players. Because if you're a midfield player like Lavia and you're playing well, and all of a sudden Enzo's on the bench, and you kind of get dragged for no reason, it undermines the players that are playing. You're rewarding the ones that are getting the job done. Listen, the fact that they're involved in the Conference League is I just think a shambles that a team at that level is and the Shamrock Rovers have to go there in a few weeks' time. But the fact that he didn't even put Cole Palmer in his European squad, he just left him out. And obviously that might be readdressed in January for the knockout stages. But players are fresh now. They essentially don't have European football because that team is totally different to the one that played midweek. So I think he has got so much right. It's so under the radar. I understand Chelsea are a lot of people don't like Chelsea, but you got to give them credit for what they are. They are an enjoyable watch, and they are going places fast.
Yeah, totally agree. Again, it's hard to be too excited because, with $1 billion spent, you couldn't say it's a plucky underdog value for money kind of venture, but it's coming together.
It is in a way, though, Joe. I know you say they spent $1 billion because, the $1 billion that was spent wasn't on over-the-hill stars that were not aging. It was a lot of young talent with the potential to get better, and I think they are showing that now. So Amorim got a good squad, but he's getting the most out of it, and I really like watching Chelsea at the minute.
Just on Cole Palmer, so again, everybody signed up to that fan club now. He could well emerge as the best English talent of his generation, and that's a fairly beefy generation. There was a moment where a graphic popped up in the game, and he'd had 2 touches in 15 minutes in the first half. And, Gary Neville remarked in commentary, Arsenal are, they're paying a lot of attention to him. They're doing a good job of trying to stop him get the ball. And around that time, he sort of looked a bit frustrated. And then a ball fell to him edge of the area, which I just think if he was in a flow and on the ball a lot, he would have controlled. It was a bit of a chance for him. And I thought to myself, and Neville he sort of said he's going to have to get used to this. And he was talking about like almost being double marked, or like teams really going out of their way to keep him out of the game. That was an interesting comment. Cole Palmer probably will have a decade of kind of a bit like, can't get into the game here at times. He's either going to have to learn to live with the frustration of that and be ready when the ball does come to him, or two, find ways to get himself into the game under a lot of attention. I presume he'll figure that out one way or the other, but that is going to be his lot now increasingly. He is a marked man.
Absolutely, and deservedly so. I even listening to him in the interviews, he's got a laid back, nonchalant, almost disinterested, as in like, oh, are we playing football this weekend? And I think when that game started and he couldn't get into it, he doesn't panic. He just was like, I trust my ability. I know that I'll find space. Sometimes you're just figuring out what they're doing, because that's what the real top players do. Like if you have a system that's nullifying them, they'll just kind of stand still for 2 or 3 minutes and look around and take stock and go, okay. And then they'll come up with a solution themselves, and he will do that. I also don't think he's the type to panic or, flail arms. If he can't get into the game, he can't get into the game, but he trusts that he will. But I think Chelsea is a perfect fit for him now, because that club is going to grow, I believe, over the next number of years, and he will grow with it. And he will be the face, front and centre. He will be the main man, the Eden Hazard type figure for that football club over the next number of years, if not even better again. Yeah. He is so talented, and that's one that Pep might look back on in a couple of years.
Pep, I'm telling you, Pep, like, he doesn't have to answer questions to anyone because what he's done is extraordinary. He's not immune to making mistakes. That is a mistake, one way or another. Yeah. That is a mistake.
Well, he'll probably argue that he had to do it, financial fair play and all that, and they need to raise funds. And I think Gary Neville made that point a few weeks back, that financial fair play wasn't designed that clubs sell their best talent, especially the best English talent. Yeah. So I think that he will put that argument that we had to sell a player and we got offered
there was money. Yeah, there was a degree as well of Palmer wanting to go, because Pep was honest with him and said your first team opportunities here are limited. But that's the part I'd quibble. Maybe Pep should have, maybe actually, Cole, I'm gonna get you into this side one way or another. Stay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I mean, you look at what he did with Foden, how patient he was with Foden. Remember Foden the first few years was in and out of the team, and people are thinking, why is he a good player? Where's he going? Should he leave? Now, obviously, Phil Foden has developed into what he has, and I think it probably would have been worth doing it for Cole Palmer as well, because if he could have found a way to get both of them in. But look, he probably didn't think he was going to go to Chelsea and do what he did, Cole Palmer, because he carried that team last year. His numbers were incredible. And I tell you what, I just find myself, when the game going on, I find myself just watching Cole Palmer drifting, and that's when you know you got a good player.
Yeah. Of those types of players that have the ability to stand still, take everything in a few minutes into a game or 15 minutes into a game and figure out the solution. So you would have come up against your fair share of them. And that's sometimes harder for us when you're kind of watching 22 players on a screen to kind of sense the intelligence. Who struck you of the guys you came up against as uber intelligent in that kind of a way?
I'll actually tell you a funny story about that. We were playing Man City away once. Pellegrini was the manager, and David Silva was peak David Silva. And we went up to the Etihad, and we had a game plan that we were going to man-mark David Silva because he was that good. So we got Joel Ward, who's our best 1v1 defender, to go and track him everywhere he goes. And obviously this was happening in front of me because he was playing in the 10 and Wardy was just following him everywhere. And I'd say after about 4 minutes, David Silva just stopped and looked at Wardy. And David Silva walked, I swear to God, over to the touchline towards the dugout on the halfway line and just stood there. And Joel Ward went with him and stood next to him. And then what ended up happening was Nasri came and played the 10. So now it was 10v10, so there's obviously not a lot more space. And after about 6 minutes, everyone was like, abandon the plan. And then David Silva just came and got back in again. So he knew, like, if I could make it 10v10, and all of a sudden Nasri started causing problems. But the likes of those players, Hazard and, Fabregas and these guys, like, if you set up a plan, they figure out themselves. They know. They're just like, okay, fine, you want to take that away from me? I can go and do this if you want. And then all of a sudden the plan gets just sprayed everywhere and it just gets very, very difficult. And that's what top players, game intelligent players do. And regardless of what people say about footballers, they are super game smart, those top level players.
Well, like you listen to Palmer, he does, but the intelligence of him, they're all different kinds. So what are we saying about Arsenal then? Are they like, kind of make a fool of myself here, but like I think they're done. I don't think this is happening this year for them, honestly. And all year, like even when they went to City and got the point, I think people have misread that game. They were destroyed in that first half, and I mean, like City took them apart, and they just a great strike from distance, and like I think they're kind of overly identifying themselves as a set piece team now. Like it's like, oh God, a set piece, as opposed to can we try and score in general play a little bit? I don't actually see it this year. There's something really off with them.
Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as what you're saying. There's something off with them. I don't think they're done by any stretch of the imagination. I think they're just having a little bit of a lull, but they're still picking up results, and I think that's impressive because they've not played well. They've had a couple of red cards where they've been lost a few points.
Yeah.
I think last year they put so much into it, and they came up short, and they've just started the season a little bit slow. But it's not like they're where Manchester United are, or they're not like they're in the bottom half of the table. They're still just hovering on the periphery, and Man City are struggling a little bit too. Liverpool have obviously taken advantage of those slip-ups, but I think Arsenal will get it going. Declan Rice looks out of sorts to me.
I think he's a broken toe is the word at the moment.
Yeah, I know, but even before that, he looks a little bit leggy. That guy's been on the treadmill for about 5 or 6 years now, playing 70, 80 games a year. I mean, and by the way, like I think the stat during the Euros is he covered the most distance of any player in the whole tournament. I remember reading that in terms of total distance. He puts in a shift, and he has been doing that for a long time now, carrying West Ham in Europe. So maybe he's just having a little bit of a lull at the moment. I'm not sure what the Marino signing has kind of worked out. I know that they wanted to get him in because Partey was so in and out of the team. Centre-backs are keeping them together, to be honest, Saliba, Gabriel, and the goalkeeper as well. Havertz just dips in and out, and I think Odegaard then makes him tick, and him missing, they lost so much. But I think if he's back now and they can keep him fit, it will be a worry that they're that dependent on one player. That if he ever gets red card or if he ever gets an injured ever again, it's huge issues for Arsenal. So I think he'll be addressing that in the summer, or in the transfer window possibly, that we need to find another way of playing if Odegaard isn't there, because God forbid he'd get a long-term injury like Rodri, and Pep has to figure out how to play without Rodri. Kovacic isn't the answer at the base of that midfield. So I think both teams will be active, or trying to be active in January. But yeah, I don't think Arsenal done. I think they'll be top 4 for sure.
Oh, sorry, top 4. I just mean I'm saying
bubble is burst with them. You mean?
No, they're not winning the league this year. I think they're already too far back. I don't think they'll chase City down for 5 points, and we have to see how Liverpool go. So I don't see.
Yeah, I think Liverpool are going to have a blip as well at some point in the season. They're obviously working hard too with the European, the two fronts. Liverpool will have their blip absolutely, but I think Arsenal will be top 3, challenging right up to maybe Paddy's Day, thereabouts. But
sorry, we agree then. We that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, I agree. That's
okay. So your statement of they're done
from winning the title point of view.
Okay, fair enough. I thought you meant as a club. They were going back to
No. Let's sack Arteta. No.
Conference League, and
just from a title point of view. I mean,
fair enough.
They could get it together, win Champions League. Like they could do something, but I just think already it's tricky for them. Before we jump on to Ireland, Finland, and I want to get a word on Ruben Amorim's appointment. I haven't heard you on that yet. You want to touch on Ange and Spurs from 4-1 winners against Villa last week to losing at home to Ipswich?
Yeah, well, you just mentioned Arsenal being done there. I'm on the verge of being done with Ange, to be honest with you.
No.
And his high line and his funny formations and his intricate things. It's starting to wear thin a little bit now. You can't beat Villa 4-1 and then lose to Ipswich and Crystal Palace both got their one and only wins of the season against them. I don't know. He has to make alterations. He just has to make some changes. He has to make some adjustments and start managing the games a little better. I get that we all have principles and ideas and values and we won't veer from them. But at some point he has to say, look, we're not in a good spot right now. We're not playing particularly well. So we need to just have a little bit of a more subtle version of what I'm doing and just get some bloody wins.
But so not to remind you of things you've said a long time ago, because that's always never fair. I remember after that, that Monday Night Football against Chelsea, where it was like a caricature, you were like, amazing. This is exactly as I love this. And now you're saying no.
I'm not saying no. I'm saying that he needs to have a plan B. I agree when he first came in, he was getting results, and all of a sudden you thought, oh, this is going somewhere.
Yeah.
He just seems to be beating his head against that door, and it's not quite working for him right now. The Chelsea one was an exceptional one in fairness.
It was.
That was brilliant. But very nearly got something out of it. But I mean, that's literally, you're throwing darts in the dark there, with that.
But when they're good, they're seriously good. Like the second half against Villa last week was a joy to watch.
Yeah, but So you can't get away with that for too long, you know. I mean, you have to find, you're going to have days where that's not working, and it's so high risk, it's so high intensity that the days it's not quite there. You need to figure out a way to beat the likes of Ipswich, you know. And when you're on and you're in form, you can maybe do it. But I just think that a lot of teams are figuring out now as well what he's doing with the high line and the full-backs and the funny shapes. And, you know, when you turn the ball over, and that's what we call transition, it's like, you know, all the good stuff happens in football at that point. You know, when a team loses the ball within 5 seconds or 7 seconds of a team losing the ball, that's where all the good stuff in football happens. Yeah. And I just think that Spurs are just hopeless in transitions when they turn the ball over. Right. Because they're so high risk. They're so, you know, intent on his way. And listen, his way of playing up at Celtic will have worked when they're playing Partick Thistle or whoever it may be, because when you turn the ball over, they might not be very good in transition. But the higher up the levels you go, the players are just ultra efficient when you lose the ball, and they're just getting exposed, you know, in behind, and when the ball, because players are going to give the ball away, and you can't be that open when you give the ball away. Okay, that's a very fair point. Ruben Amorim? Yeah, interesting one. Really interesting, actually. I think he's a really good manager. I think he's going to do really great things. Will he be given the time? I think the most telling thing about what happened with Ruben Amorim was when the story broke that he wanted to wait till the end of the season. And I don't think that was anything to do with his love of sporting. I think that was to do with looking at this current Manchester United squad, and 2 more transfer windows would have helped him no end. Because I think he will have assessed the squad and went, can I get any more out of it than what Erik ten Hag was? Probably get a little bit more. I might even get top 6, top 5 maybe. Might win the League Cup or whatever. But I think the new manager bounce that he's looking for is that by the time he gets to next summer, he's already going to be under pressure, because everyone's expecting him to come in and turn it around. And I think he's probably looked at the squad of players and realised, I can't turn much around with that. Whereas if I came in the summer, there was 4 or 5 players gone, 4 or 5 players in, all of a sudden now I have a wave of optimism and I'm going to fly into the start of the next season. Whereas I think he's going to be answering some very difficult questions by Paddy's Day, to be honest with you. Right. I think he's going to be, you know, question marks coming in against him. I just hope the fans, the media understand that it's going to take, I said 6 transfer windows. It'll definitely take 3, I would imagine, for him to start putting a stamp on this team. And the key thing is getting the players out of the football club that aren't capable of playing Ruben Amorim's style or modern style of football. They have no legs in that team. Everybody knows that. I think I've said that to you before, Joe. They're full of players who can't run or won't run. Either which way, the result is the same. You have a team that don't run or can't run. So he's going to be looking at that squad now going, okay, I can't play the way I want to play. The high intensity, high pressing, high octane football. So I need to figure out a way now to get this team to the end of the season with my reputation some way intact. So that's what he's going to be doing right now, because you might not see the true Ruben Amorim unless he goes nuclear and just says, you know what, I'm just going to go in the youth team. And if you look at United's youth team, under 21s, I think the youth team, I saw a thing the other day, the youth team are 8 wins out of 8, scored 40 goals in 8 games. So there's some serious talent in the 18s, there's some serious talent in the 21s. A couple of players, a guy called, I think there's 2 players, one from Stockport called Ethan Wheatley and Ethan Williams. I mean, you look at those players and their numbers, what they put up last year, and they're only young, they're only 18. But with Ruben Amorim's track record of getting young players, developing them, getting them into a system that they understand, it might be time for a new class in 92, Joe. It could be. Yeah. It could be. And that's probably the quickest way to do it. But obviously he'd be, you know, lumbered with a load of players and probably about £1 million a week that, you know, they can't really shift. Just before you go then, Ireland-Finland is on Thursday, 7:45, and then already a slightly treacherous England away on Sunday at 5 o'clock is on the horizon. So Heimer Hallgrimsson was talking last week around the squad announcement. First of all, on the charm offensive. So I've been trying to learn the national anthem. It's hard because he looked like he was trying to sing it in Helsinki. It's one thing to know how to sing it, but then you forget the words. But I will get it at one point. National anthem is something you should take pride in learning. I'm trying my best. So everybody kind of, even though they know he's playing us, they're like, can't help but like that all the same. And then he said something which has been long said about the team. And it's funny because, you know, this has been said about the team for several years. And you kind of, you're like, is that true? I guess maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But he sort of said against Greece, once we'd nothing to lose, we were really good. It was the same against Finland. Once we had nothing to lose,
we were really good. Something we have to improve upon. And then he was talking about, it is in part psychology for sure. Do we need to bring somebody into the camp in that area? We've discussed it. And then he said, maybe it's not a good moment right now, 7-day camp, to bring someone in and change some things. But I think if we want to bring someone in like that as an observer, maybe in the beginning, then they might build up trust with the players and we go from there. So I thought that's interesting that already he's kind of identified something that is said about the team. It's like, they have to go 1-0 down to start playing. And how do we do that when we're at 0-0? Do you agree with that point? Do you sense that in this team?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
really. I mean, you can see it. But you got to go back further, that this is a team that has been used to getting beat for a long time. Over the last 4 years, we have lost a lot of games to a lot of really poor teams, right? And that the weight of that drags confidence out of players, rips the confidence out of them. They're not used to winning games. You go back through some of our results, regardless of what people say, and this is not me having to go with the previous regime or anything like that. Nothing to do with that. I'm just saying that this is a team that's been used to getting beat, and the psychology of this team now is that we can't win games of football, and that's what he's taken over. And this team needs to find a way, and he obviously has identified that, and I think it's a fair point. I agree with him as psychologists. It's hard to come in. Players never met him before. You meet him for 7 days. You need to trust sports psychologists and stuff like that. So it's hard to build trust in that amount of time. But he has to find a way, and the only way to do that is winning a game. We won against Finland.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how, but we've won a game. So all of a sudden now the feeling around the squad is an awful lot better. We've won a game of football. And if we can beat Finland and all of a sudden we can go 1-0 up in the first half and then score again in the second half and win 2-0, all of a sudden we're climbing out of that fear that we have. I mean, as a player, Joe, if you're playing games of football and you're losing or drawing against Armenians, Luxembourgs, Azerbaijans, you can go through the list of what was the stat? The only team we beat was Gibraltar twice and maybe Scotland, I think. So we'd one win in 4 years against a team that was ranked around us and nothing ranked higher than us, right? So that takes its toll. Like, you go into any workplace and if you're getting battered every day, your confidence is going to be low. So he needs to rebuild that. And that is an interesting comment, and I'm glad that he's thinking about something like that, because it means that he's recognising that they need to build confidence. But he obviously feels that he can do that at the moment with his,
Just one last interesting one on that is that, excuse me, Matt Doherty has been called into the squad now because Coleman is injured. So Doherty was left out of the last squad, obviously. And then he did an interview with the 42 where he kind of, I mean, it's a quote. He was like, obviously I should be in the squad. It wasn't I appreciate I haven't been in good form and I'm going to work my backside off to get back in. It was kind of I should be in the squad. So now because of Coleman's injury, he's in. I don't know. You'd love to see a response from him. But I'm not sure if he's kind of thinking, well, look, I should be in the squad and I've no case to answer here after his mistake against Greece and the way he's played over the last year or two. I'm not sure what Matt Doherty, Damien, which is a real pity because obviously there's so much there.
Yeah, he's a really good player. And I hear he's a really, really nice guy, so it's difficult to criticise him.
Okay.
But his body language is just terrible. And I don't know if he recognises that or he sees that as a problem. But and I wouldn't even say it's a perceived lack of effort, because sometimes there he's running and you're like, come on, Matt, you can run more than that. Like even the goal against Greece at the Aviva there, like, and as a defender, right, you're running and the guy is going to get a shot on goal, more than likely you're going to score. But if you watch him at the end, he just tails off to the left, right? Now, as a defender, right, you're going to like do everything. I've seen players shout, scream, whistle. You're trying to break that player's concentration, because as that ball is coming across the goal onto his foot, the player is watching it intently. Like, listen, I'm not saying there's going to be any coaching manuals, but you're just trying to like break his concentration. And sometimes if the attacker sees a pair of orange boots coming into the periphery of his vision, like he might just hurry up, take it a little bit earlier, and he might miss connection. And I mean, listen, you're in the 0.1% chance of it, but you don't just run away and give him an uneasy thing. Like, like there was a thing before, like if a cross is coming in the box, like, and usually as a centre back, as soon as that ball is a third of the way I'm not getting this, like, and the centre forwards have to pull it off your shoulder. You always still jump, right? Because if you jump, you might get down the line of the ball and it breaks. Whereas if a centre forward can watch the ball all the way and he's going to meet it with his forehead, that's why you see so many headers sometimes, coming off people's shoulders or their ear or their nose. It's because if you jump, they lose sight of the ball reappears. So like, you're just doing anything to stop a goal going in. And sometimes when you watch Matt, you think, is he really doing everything he can do here? You know, is he killing himself? You know, he trots back, he jogs, which, you know, is his style, but it doesn't look good when you're losing games of football. So that's something I think he's going to have to address, get the intensity back in his game that I think he had when he initially burst on the scene from Wolves. Am I right in saying that Matt was a centre forward at Bowes when he first went up?
Yeah.
But like, he doesn't have that natural defender's instinct. It is a very kind of casual winger attacker type instinct. So he needs to learn that if he wants to be a defender. So it's up to him now. He's back in the squad. I'm surprised that he put him back in after leaving him out, because I thought he was going to make Matt almost like a focal point of like, we're moving on. We're not accepting that anymore. But I think he's brought him back in the squad, and it's up to Matt now to have a reaction. And if he does get on the pitch, show some urgency, show some intensity, and some real desire to get results for Ireland, because that's what ultimately people want to see.
Damien, brilliant.
Cheers, Joe.
It's Farrell on it again, deep one around the back, and Quinn has scored! There's the breakthrough goal! It's Andrew Quinn. The underdogs bare their teeth and show their fight in this cup final. Drogheda United strike first. And it's come from a set piece, another Shane Farrell delivery, and Andrew Quinn, who threatened with the head earlier, has caressed that one in beyond Brian Marr. Back defending here against Conor Kane, who's sharp and he's gone down. Penalty. Brilliant bit of work from Conor Kane. Positive, decisive running, boys. Looked like he left a leg in there.
That's what it all comes down to there. It's aggression, wanting to get on the end of things. Oh, that's very, very tight. The referee's got a wonderful view of it. It's probably just inside. I'd say it's even on the line. Oh.
And this the chance to give the underdogs real breathing room. He's dispatched it clinically. The coolest of heads out there. And just reward, you would think, for such a positive second half start from Drogheda United. They lead Derry City by 2 goals to 0, and it's dead-eyed Douglas James Taylor again. And that is it. It is all over. In this all-or-nothing 7-day period, Drogheda United deliver, and deliver big. Just a second FAI Cup success in the club's history. And with it, of course, European football secured for next season. 19 years on from that 0-5 triumph under Paul Doolan. Kevin Doherty will be bringing the cup back to Boyneside.
Well, it's a hell of a way to warm up for a promotion relegation playoff next Saturday against Bray at Tallaght Stadium. Drogheda FAI Cup champions at the Aviva Stadium yesterday. Sean O'Connor of the Irish Independent was there. Sean, hello.
Joe, how's it going?
Very well. Good day?
Great day. Really, really enjoyed it. Just occasion-wise, storyline-wise, Drogheda winning just their second cup in their history, first in 19 years. It kind of felt like a day packed with storylines. I suppose we'll come on to Derry as well, but the day belonged to Drogheda. I don't think many people gave them a chance coming into this game. Derry, strong favourites. A lot of that squad had won the cup in 2022, beaten Shells. A lot of the squad have won previous cups. A couple of players won it with Dundalk, going back through the years. And they were massive underdogs coming into this game, but talking to a few of the players in the lead up to it, in the league, Drogheda are kind of tagged as underdogs for most games. Obviously, one of the last remaining, they're kind of hybrid, part-time. Now they're moving closer towards a full-time setup. But the underdogs tag suited them, and they certainly didn't play like underdogs on Sunday. Absolutely brilliant performance. Every player knew their job 100%, did it to a T, and lifting the first cup in 19 years. And I suppose we'll come on to the storylines as well, but just occasion-wise, it was a brilliant day.
Yeah, 38,700 through the gates. That's 1,000 more than turned up for the Ireland-Greece game in September. So again, this kind of date in the calendar now is very much ensconced and established. I don't know, like, it'll never drop below this kind of attendance level again, I suspect, which is great.
Hopefully not. 38,000 there. Obviously, 5,000 less than last year's final. But of course, last year you had Pats and Bows, 2 Dublin clubs. So it was a record attendance for non-Dublin clubs in the final. Right. It was the first final in a good few years not involving Dublin clubs. But just you look at the growth of the league. We were talking about it during the week. The last few years, you look back to 10 years ago. Derry played Pats in the final, and there was 17,000 there. And you fast forward 10 years later, they're almost hitting 40,000. It's been an absolutely incredible rise of the league in popularity post-COVID, and it's obviously been touched on before, but it really feels like a massive, massive day in the calendar now, not just for the sides involved, but just for the neutral as well.
I think so. And that, like, a huge underdog in Drogheda against Derry, no Dublin club involved. In terms of sellability, it wasn't an especially marquee matchup, and still they hit basically the 40,000 mark again. So it's very, very promising. You mentioned storylines. Like, it is amazing, and it's a consequence of the access the league provides that you get to know a lot of these stories. You know, you see even Dan in the paper, in the build-up, he jumped in on the carpool. The boy band, yeah. And like, but they're into it, the Drogheda players, and they're taking selfie of them all in the car. And as you said, it's still a hybrid of amateurism and professionalism, one of the kind of last League of Ireland clubs straddling that line at the moment. But like somebody like Shane Farrell, who I know you were writing about, it just jumps off the page. It's just a great openness to how these players talk. So he was talking afterwards about the 2022 final where he'd play for Shells on that very poor day where Derry had beaten them 4-0. And he had not played well that day. And the extent to which this seemed to have rattled his confidence was severe. So he was talking post-game about the win yesterday. I wanted redemption so badly. I was probably the worst player on the pitch 2 years ago. I gave away 2 sloppy goals. They were my fault. I felt like I'd let Shelburne down, the fans down. I'd let Damien down. But before the game today, I was so calm. And in your piece, he talked about that final 2 years ago. And he said, it was the lowest moment of my career. It affected me until, well, it's probably why I got released at Shelburne last July. It's a sad moment. I spent 6.5 years there, but my confidence was shattered after that final 2 years ago. I remember having a chat with Damien about my confidence, and he said, you just need to pick it up again and get going. I couldn't get going. Wow. Well, I mean, like, what a journey.
Almost most of the Drogheda players, there's a massive backstory and storyline, whether it's, balancing football with part-time work, the redemption story, of course, of Shane Farrell, absolutely incredible. Yeah, 2 years ago, hooked at half-time, saying it's the lowest moment of his career, getting released from Shelburne during the summer. But he said almost when he found out the news about Shelburne, almost straight away, Kev Doherty rang him and he said, I absolutely love you as a player. I want you to come play for me. And he's been really impressive. Set up the first goal in the cup final, and what a difference 2 years can make. Because
I guess it could have went 2 ways. He could have had like some kind of PTSD breakdown as like, oh my God, I'm back in a cup final. I don't want to be here. It sounds more like he was in the, well, it can't be any worse than 2 years ago. So I'm just going to go out and play vicinity, which is better, obviously.
And just like something I was thinking about last night, you see elite football now and the Premier League and people on millions and millions of pounds or euros. But when you come down to it, and at the League of Ireland, like talking to Shane Farrell on Sunday night, you could still see the tears in his eyes. You're talking to Dave Webster in the league, 17 years. It was his first ever cup final, and he plans to retire now after Saturday's promotion relegation playoff. You had Ryan Brennan, one of the survivors from their 2013 final defeat. Loads of different players like that, and there's a couple of Shelburne connections as well. Gary Deeg and Ryan Brennan, ex-Shelburne players. Conor Kane missed that 2022 final for Shelburne with an injury. There's great storylines in each player. Like, and we mentioned the part-time work as well. Kev Doherty worked as a postman for years and years. Dara Doyle, the assistant manager, he reads gas meters during the week before training. About half the squad work part-time and balance football and work. So just in terms of storylines, and I think nowadays in a lot of elite football, players earn so much money, and obviously winning trophies and silverware and playing, it means something to them. But when you're talking to fellas last night who balance football with part-time work, and you just see it in their eyes, it means absolutely everything to them, not just to them, but their family and the sacrifices they make. Like a full time, Kevin Doherty's daughter Izzy ran straight to him, and they must have hugged each other for maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Kev Doherty was in absolute tears at full time. He said he didn't plan on crying on national TV, but after their semi-final win, and even last night as well, in the post-match, he's talked a lot about the influence of his late father, Liam. Mm-hmm. He died during COVID. He keeps a photo of his dad in his phone, and just the influence he had on him, and just from someone who's lost their own father as well, I kind of connected to that a lot. There was a great story after the semi-final when Kev Doherty lost the 2007 final as a player with Longford, and he was really upset that he felt like he kind of let his dad down. And when he was talking to his dad after, his dad kind of said to him, like, how could I, like, of course I'm proud of you. How could I ever be disappointed? I'm just after seeing my son play in the FAI Cup final, and just the influence of his father on his career just really hit home. And he was choking up on RT last night and things like that. So just all these little stories, it comes to the fore that it just means so much to them, and it's authentic. It's really authentic.
I'm not surprised he was choked up when you laid it out in those terms. Let's hear from him now then. So Kevin Doherty, who up until last year working in the post office, has stepped away from that to do everything he can with Drogheda. So here he is speaking post-game, the Drogheda manager.
How would you not be proud of that? You probably see the face is all right, it seems not too bad, but I told him before the game how proud of him, regardless of the result, because we were through such a tough couple of months under summer, and people were writing us off for everything. Now, this is going to be the most boring answer after a cup final win, but we have playoffs to win next week. Yeah. So, we're all staying.
Worry about it next week.
We'll enjoy it tonight 100%, because we've won the FAI Cup for only the second time in the club's history, which is unbelievable. First division, and Tim got us promoted, and to be doing what the lads have been doing, and for the last few years, I mean, like, you only have to look what's around us.
This year, as the only part-time team in it, it's an unbelievable achievement. It really is, Kevin. Like honestly. I know. I'm absolutely. As I said, I'm delighted. It is. We do have, like, we're coming up against literally every other team is whatever has a lot more. But we're lucky with as I said, with Travella coming in. They've been brilliant with us, like absolutely brilliant. But in improving things, but that'll gradually, and things like today will certainly help. But improving gradually, and lads, like, we couldn't sign a player really from outside the country. Doing it. I think Sean Rona's here. We had Freddie Draper was living in his granny's last year, but now we have, like, we're just doing things that clubs, professional football club, do now. Normally I'm here on this panel most weeks and have to remain impartial. I've never been happier in all my life.
Sure, look, again, I would have gone, and you know what, even when, obviously, I'd say I've seen the semi-final, the two boys having a go.
I'm going on the European trip.
Hey, yeah. You never know, it might be allowed.
The European trip.
I know he's doing a bit of coaching now as well.
What?
He's trying to get.
Don't let it out of the bag, yeah.
But look, even when the message he sent me this morning was my dad's memorial card, like, and that's why. And even now, Jesus, I am an emotional fella at the best of times, but
can't be emotional now, Kev.
No, I know. Yeah, it's just like having my family here, my mum.
You'd be a proud man today.
It's amazing, isn't it? So that's Alan Cawley, who obviously knew Liam Doherty, Kevin's father.
Yeah, it was just really, really special scenes, and you had everyone at full time with their families, kids on the pitch. Special memories, but just in terms of football wise, it's an absolutely remarkable 6 days for the club after just their second cup in the club's history. Now next Saturday, there can't have been too much celebrating. They celebrate a little bit, but obviously it's all eyes towards Saturday now and that promotion relegation playoff against Bray, Tallaght Stadium, where they have to win to retain top flight status for next year. Yeah. But obviously looking ahead to next year, they now have Europe to look forward to. Their first European appearance since 2013. They go into the Conference League's second qualifying round next summer, and it's banked at the minimum €525,000 for the club as well. But the Drogheda have Europe to look forward to. Derry don't.
Yeah, so their season has sort of imploded, really, hasn't it? From a month ago when they were on the cusp of maybe, I'm sure in their eyes, doing something very special. I thought Rory Higgins' comments were interesting. So he was talking about, well, he's only 40 years of age. He said, I get criticised for being emotionless at times. hadn't realised that was a criticism he's getting. I'm an extremely emotional person. When you don't achieve, it hurts bad. It affects your life, the people around you. Do I still have the drive and the hunger to keep going? When the dust settles, my intentions right now are to keep going. We have to try and look forward. Is he under pressure for his job now in the back of this season? This criticism of being emotionless, where's all that coming from?
I say without a doubt there will be pressure. It'll be a long winter now after finishing at the start of the season, one of the nailed on title contenders to push Shamrock Rovers. Not many people tipped Shelbourne, of course, for the league at the start of the season, but during the season they spent the majority of it floating between second and third, chasing Shelbourne, and
dreadful away form.
And when Shelbourne went on that run of, I think it was 1 win in 10 coming into the last few weeks of the season, Derry had countless opportunities to close the gap and put the pressure on. They look back to a really crucial Friday Monday quick turnaround. They'd a double header against Bows and Sligo at home, and they drew both games 1-1. Couple of weeks later, losing away to St. Pat's in the penultimate game, and that ended their title hopes. They're still waiting for a first title since 1997. And Sunday was a chance to put that disappointment behind them, and they were really poor. They just did not show up at all. And a lot of those players had been there before, done it, won the cup in 2022, and they just started okay. Had one or two chances, but just they looked really off it.
Is there any talk of what's gone wrong this season? Any theories as to what's after happening here over the last couple of months?
They have, and I think it was referenced on Sunday that I think Rory Higgins alluded to himself in the post-match. They just seem to have an issue performing under pressure when their tails are up, when they have to get the job done. They haven't, and you see that with the countless opportunities they had to capitalise in the league. On their day, they are very, very good, and of course they had an incredibly hard cup run to this final, knocking out defending champion St. Pat's in the first round, defeating Shelbourne at home. They had to go down to First Division champions Cork and beat them, and then in the semi-final beating Bows 2-0 on their home patch. They did have a pretty hard, probably as hard as you could have made it, run to the cup final, but just the ability to perform under pressure, I think, and it'll be a long winter there, and the post-mortem will begin. And not having, after finishing fourth, they had to win to secure Europe. They didn't. No European football for 2025. A couple of players out of contract as well, and in the off-season, Rory Higgins now will not be able to offer European football to those players.
And will he survive to next year?
I think he seems to have the backing from Philip O'Doherty, like, for the moment. I think it was not telling, but a lot of the Derry sections, and I know, of course, it's a long trip home, but a lot of the Derry sections seem to filter out quite quickly, even going into the last 10 minutes of the game and shortly after as well, while Drogheda were celebrating. There's no doubt he's under pressure, but obviously it's up to those in charge.
Okay. That is us done for today. Keep an eye out as well. There'll be a rugby conversation in your feed with Ian Madigan and Rory O'Connor. Sean O'Connor, thanks very much.
Thanks, Joe.